get these brakes done on this BMW X1. It's a 2013 model. I've took the front wheel off already, just to speed up the process of showing you what to do. We're only changing the pads, and we're going to be changing the brake pad wear sensors as well. You get a 7mm Allen key. I call them a split, but I don't know what the actual proper name is. I'll try and put a link in the description for these. But it's a 7mm anyway, not sure if you can see that. And that's it in there. They're actually not usually that tight anyway. Get the one at the top. Well, the next job is to get these retainers off. They are a bit fiddly, but you can lift it up there and then screwdriver here and it pops it out. Right inside there is like on a little hook. So you got this one top and bottom, and then these bits keep tension on it. It's just to keep your caliper solid. Without this, it flops about a little bit. Right, I'll get this off now. It's off now. If you look closely, there's like little hooks right there, which go inside those holes. So it fits like that. You can see the tension on those, look, when you line that up. So yeah, they are a bit of an awkward one to get off, but just take your time. You don't want to bend them up and damage them. Usually they don't come in the brake pad kits, so I'm going to have to reuse them. I'll just give these a little clean up so they look a bit better, and then yeah, you refit them. They are a bit awkward, but just take your time and you'll get it. With the sliders, I don't know if you can see it down there, the threads, get a screwdriver, not on the threads. There's a solid piece on the slider right there, and just push it back inside the housing. Don't pry it on the threads, but just slide it back into there like that, so the threads are out the way for when you remove the caliper, just so you don't damage the threads or anything like that. You can, if you want to, pull these sliders out. See, you do get a bit of a build up of gunk around that edge right there, but you get some like 1200 grit sandpaper, a bit of WD-40, and they come back up like new. I'll do this on the video in a bit, and I'll show you what I do just to keep them clean and keep them sliding freely. The next thing I'll do, I'll release the bleed nipple, which you've got right here. On this one, it's an 11mm. So a lot of people say you don't have to do this process. I personally prefer to, just to release any pressure from in the system inside the caliper, and when you come to push the piston in, then you're not forcing any fluid back through the system, and it's a lot easier to do the job. You're not fighting with the piston to get it in. It just slides back in nice. Any excess fluid comes down this pipe into the tub, which you got down here. Your piston's back in, you close the bleed nipple, finish the brakes, put the brake pads in, finish the job, and then you give the brakes a bleed. It will literally take you 30 seconds to a minute. Get your wife or your kid to jump in the car. I'll show you that process at the end, but yeah, you just bleed the brakes quickly. You only need 3-4 pumps of the brake pedal and it's job done. I've got a bit of pipe on here. I will put a link in the description below for all this sort of stuff. 11mm spanner. Be very careful on these. If they seem really tight, stop, because you will snap them. If you look now, you'll see the fluid starting to come out. I haven't actually touched anything yet, look. So once I get this caliper off, it's already releasing pressure, so it's easier to get the caliper off with it being compressed to the disc with the pads. So that'll make my life a lot easier to get it off. And when I come to push the piston back in, I'll show you this. I'll be able to push it back in by hand. What I'll do here now is, because I'm ready to take the caliper off, if you look inside there, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, there's the piston. I'll try and come in from underneath. You can see the screwdriver here. I get it against, between the brake pad and the piston, watching the rubber boot, maybe from here, just to give you an idea. I'll slide it in that gap there, between the piston and the brake pad. I'll push the piston in slightly, with this undone, and as you can see, it's all loose now. It'll come off quite easy. So that's what I'll do, just to release the pressure. Right, the caliper's off now. This brake pad has a wear sensor fitted. It's clipped on the back of the pad there. I will pull the pad off and show you. When you take the caliper off, don't leave it resting on the brake pipe, and do not kink it. You can see the brake pipe now, it's not kinked at all, and there's no pressure on it. It's totally safe like that. Just make sure this is solid and it's not going to fall on the brake pipe. What you need to do is pop the pad out, and you'll be able to see now there's a wire down the very bottom there. What I need to do is unclip that, I can get the pad out, and then I'll show you the wiring for it. To open this box, be careful because these could get brittle. 2 little clips and you're inside now. Looking at this, it's the top one, the white one. So you pull that out, give it a clean up because it is quite dirty, and what we'll do is unclip this here and then get the cable out and unclip it. It's clipped in here, it's clipped in down here, and there's clips up the top there. We'll get that off now. As you can see, that's the pad out, and here's the wear sensor wiring. If you look, that wear sensor's been hit by the disc, so that's why you need to replace it. Some say you don't need to replace them, but honestly, just replace it. I'll show you fitting the new wear sensor on the brake pad in a sec before we put it in. Now it's time to get this piston pushed back in. Now we're on the part where we want to get this piston pushed back in. So what I'm going to do is release the bleed nipple. The bleed nipple's loosened now. This should just push back in by hand, and just slowly push it in. Don't try and race to get it in. It's nearly all the way back in now, look. That's just one hand. It is easier with a thumb on this side and a thumb on that side. So that's what I'm going to do now to finish it off, and then I'll show you the position it needs to be in to fit the new pads. As you can see, it's all the way back in. You'll push it and you'll feel it'll just stop, it'll bottom out, and that's it then. I've tightened back up the bleed nipple, well, just pinched it up just to stop the fluid coming out, and that's it now. It's a case of refitting the brake pads, rerouting the wire for the sensor, and then putting it all back together, but I'll go through that now as I do it. This is the rear brake pad. This is what goes at the back of the caliper. You can tell because it has these springs here which they clip into the piston. The wear sensor is two-sided sort of. The flat side's the back there, and you've got to look at little nib right there. That's the part that faces the pad. So when you refit this, you want to clip it in to there, that way round. What happens is then this pad will wear down and it'll start to catch on this, and that's when it gives you a warning in the car then of your brake pad is getting low. So basically, line it up like that, and you hear it clipping, and that's in now. So it's a case now of, with this wire, feed it back through the caliper and then thread it back through and put it all in the right place in the clips, basically, and that's it. It's ready to be refitted. I do add a little bit of copper grease on here and on here. I'll add a little bit on the end of these prongs on here just to stop any squeaking, and I put a bit inside there. You don't need to paint the whole pad in copper grease, you just don't need to do it. You just put it on the contact areas. The other place I'll put copper grease is around the piston, around there. Just a little coating. It's just where it contacts the back of the pad, around there. Right, I'll get this wire rerouted now. Thought I'd show you this before I refit it. Copper grease, there's not a lot on there, as you can see. It's just a little bit around the piston, on the edges of it. And with a pad then, you see a little bit of grease on that edge, around there. And also on the spring clips at the back. It's just to stop any possibility of squeaks or anything. This pad now gets refitted that way, but you've got to drop the cable through the hole in the caliper down there. I'll start refeeding it, and as I get it in most of the way I'll show you. Get the old pad off. That's the old one. There's still a little bit left, but the customer wanted them changing. I've copper greased the edges of this one too, on just the both edges. What I've done is, a lot of people paint the back of this pad in copper grease. Personally, I don't. You got this here and this here. If you look on that side, I've put copper grease down there and I've put copper grease down there. So when this goes back on, when it goes back in and it touches it, the only place the copper grease is on the contact points, so it's not covering everything. You don't want everything covered. I'll give these a clean up inside here, just a little tiny wire brush just to get any big chunks or particles out. That pad then is refitted there. What we'll do is now get the caliper, bring it back down, fit it back on, put the slider bolts in, and then we'll reroute the rest of the cable then. Show you refitting the caliper. Let's watch that wire at the back don't get pinched. And that's it, it's in position. Literally just slots on. All we need to do now is put the slider bolt back in the top, and the same at the bottom. And that's it then. Tighten those up, they don't need to be insanely tight. Once they're tight, just give them a little turn, that's more than enough. Spring retainer back on, and then we'll reroute this wear sensor wire back for all the clips down there. You got one there, you got one there, and you've got one right at the top there, and then reconnect it. But I'll put on the video in a sec and show you that. Let's clean these slider bolts up then. Here's the slider bolts. You can see there's a bit of build-up of crap just around this section here. You don't have to clean these, it's just my personal preference. Tiny bit of WD-40, 1200 sandpaper, and just give it a quick. You'll be shocked how easy it comes off. Look, it's coming off quite easy, but that's what I do. There's the slider bolts all cleaned up. Looks quite new actually. What I do is now copper grease on the threads, and just a little bit up here. You don't want too much. That'll be enough, and it'll help lubricate it and help it slide in and out easily. That's it. We'll get this refitted now. I've rerouted this cable now and put it in all the clips. Comes at the back of the pad there. There's a little groove in the back of the pad. Comes round the back. There's a little white clip there. It clips into. There's quite thick rubber bits on the cable itself, which clips into. Comes up. You got a clip here. A bit further. There's like a grommet that slides in. The cable comes up, over, and back down into the next clip up the top there, which is right there. And then it'll be into the box there, where it clips together with this. On this, there's just a little tab there that you depress. You depress that tab and pull it apart. You might need to push the connections together, press the tab, and then pull it to get it apart. But I'm guessing this can get brittle, so just be careful with it when you come to undo it. And there is a lot of rubbish and dust and crap in there, so just give that a wipe off first. I'll get this clip back together now, close the box, and then finish off doing this caliper. That's the plug clipped back together now, and it clips back inside this box. It's held in place. Make sure the cable's not going to get pinched anywhere, and shut the lid. And that's it. That's the wear sensor refitted and rerouted on the original line where the other one was. I've refitted the retaining clip. It's really difficult to show refitting it, but basically you come in from this angle, get the hooks into the holes that way, and then sort of lay it back down. These can slip off, so you just need to use a screwdriver just in there, minding the disc, just to keep them back, and then it sort of just clips in place. And this is it now, it's all back on and it's finished. I'm just going to give this a bleed now. I'll show you how I do that, and that's it. That's the brake pads fitted with a new sensor and all bled up and ready to go. On the X1 you've got a cover which goes down there. Unclip that and your reservoir's there. Just make sure it's got enough fluid in, keep it up to max while you're bleeding the brakes. I'm going to bleed the brakes now. My wife's in the car. I'm going to tell it on to press the brake pedal down and then off, and she'll release the brake pedal. So release the bleed nipple like this. Press it on. You can see the fluid running down. Close it back. Off. Loosen it again. On. close it again, off, on, and that'll be enough. There's no air bubbles in this line at all, so yeah, pop this off carefully because it'll drain, and that's it done. Give this a clean up, pop that back on, and that's this brake. The front brakes on this side are all done. Now it's all completed, I'm going to show you the jacking points that I use. I don't normally show this on the videos. Reason why, it's a bit of like, someone uses the jacking points where I'll say to jack it and it collapses on them. I suppose I could be in trouble. I don't know how it works. What I've done is, there's a plastic block under there. It's the original BMW one. The customer wanted me to use a block of wood, so I have. But normally I'd just use the pad of the jack. But that's the jacking point. I've used an axle stand then. It's not actually on the car. If you look under there, it's just in case that jack was to slip, it'll land on there. It's a solid point of part of the chassis, and it's just for safety. And if you can see better from that angle, the axle stand's not actually got any pressure on it at all. It's just in case that jack was to slip. So that's a jacking point. We're going to reset the brake service interval now. Put the key in the ignition. Put the ignition on. Don't start the car. Press and hold the button down here. Now you can scroll through the menu down there. As you can see. You want that one? Press and hold BC. It'll come up reset, release the button, press and hold it again. And now it's got like a little clock. You can let go of the button now. The reset back to 47,000 miles, sorry. And then it comes up with a little tick when you press BC again to say it's reset. We'll scroll up and do the rear pads. Press and hold reset, comes up. Press and hold BC again. Like that. And now it's resetting. There's a little clock on there. It's reset back to 50,000 miles. Press BC and it'll say it's reset. And you can scroll through and you've got your other warnings, and that's oil and stuff. But this is on a customer's car. He's taking it back to BMW for the oil change, so I won't touch any of that. Ignition off. Key out. And that's job done. I'll get this wheel refitted now and torque up the wheel nuts, and that's the job done. Thanks for watching. I hope the video helped you out. If you can, give it a like, subscribe to the channel. There's going to be a lot more videos similar to this, different DIY videos, even car shows and stuff again in the future once this coronavirus is over. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you in the next one.